Okay, everybody, I think we are good to go. Welcome to another webinar we're doing during this pandemic as we endure what we're going through. All of us are going through this together, but also giving us this opportunity to have these Facebook Live events in which we can talk about everything that's also going on within this pandemic. So let me thank all of you for joining. And thank all of you who will then subsequently watch this at a later time. So I appreciate that. Today, obviously, like I said, we all understand we're going through a pandemic, but I also want to talk about another important issue, and that's the deferred action on childhood arrivals. A very important issue for us here on the Central Coast of California, but also throughout this country, as I have learned in talking to my many congressional colleagues who have a number of Dreamers and DACA recipients in their district. As many of you know, right here on the Central Coast, we have about 20,000 Dreamers here on the Central Coast. There's about 700, there's a few million Dreamers, but 700,000 across the country who are actually Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals Program recipients as well. And just to kind of let you know what an important part DACA recipients play, not just in our community in a regular time, but during this pandemic, DACA recipients are absolutely instrumental in helping us defeat COVID-19. There are 30,000 DACA recipients who are on the front lines in healthcare battling the disease, be it as professional healthcare workers, as doctors, as nurses, as technicians, as researchers, as EMT, as paramedics. They are essential workers. And I firmly believe that our nation needs people like that now, but also in the future. But I also believe, and the reason why I'm having this is because that's a perfect example of who the Dreamers are that I know, who the Dreamers are, young men and women here on the Central Coast that were brought here at no fault of their own. And let me tell you, they don't just want to stay here, they want to contribute here. And DACA provides them with that opportunity to give back to literally the only country and sometimes the only community, the only home that they've ever known. And so, yes, DACA recipients are Dreamers, are frontline workers, essential workers, they're taxpayers, they're my constituents, they're our colleagues, they're our neighbors, they're our friends, and yeah, they're our family members. And so, as we know, and as we might have heard, most of you probably heard if you're tuning into this, that the Supreme Court recently had a very important ruling to uphold the Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals program. And what they ruled is that this administration, the Trump administration, cannot immediately end DACA, which they tried to do. Once again, the Supreme Court held that this administration cannot immediately end DACA unless it has a reasoned explanation. And they did not. And so this is good news temporarily, but understandably, it's not the end of the war. We won the battle, but it's not the end of the war. And unfortunately, as we know, there's also a lot of confusion surrounding the decision, especially when it comes to the certain protections for current DACA recipients, their families, and of course, the loved ones. And that's why today I've asked a few people to join us to talk about DACA, what it means to us here on the Central Coast, what it means to our country, and yes, what are the next steps, what we can do in Congress, but also within our community to explain how important it is to protect DACA recipients, protect DACA program, and ultimately provide everybody with that opportunity to not just stay here, but to have that opportunity to give back to this place that we call home. Now, I have three guests here. The first one I want to talk about is Adriana. She's a Dreamer from Salinas, and I've known her for about 4 years now. And I'm so proud to say that she was my guest at a State of the Union address by the President of the United States in 2018. She's a first-generation student, which went to a junior college. Well, you call them community colleges now, but went to a JC like I did. She went to Hartnell Community College and graduated in 2019. and she discovered the Mi Casa program for undocumented students. And eventually she became a student worker there in the role of a communications specialist. She's now is going into would be her fourth year in college, second year at San Jose State. And in the meantime, before she starts, she's a program assistant for equity programs at the college. So Adriana, it's so good to see you. Thank you
Likewise,
so much.
Congressman.
And if you could, why don't you start off, before we get to our next guest, why don't you start off by please sharing, if you don't mind, your story, about the DACA program, about Hartnell, and how you hope to see the program continue.
Of course. So in 2017, I was able to stand before you and the rest of my community to talk about DACA. And today, nearing the end of that administration, I am here again asking for the same thing I asked 4 years ago, a chance to call this my home without the fear of deportation. My story has given me the opportunity to join you at the State of the Union address, which was a once in a lifetime experience, and I could not be more grateful for that. But I have also had the chance to inform and impact people who have gotten to know me and know that I am not a criminal. I go to school, I work, I pay my taxes, I volunteer, and help countless of students continue with their education through my work at Hartnell College. I could not have been able to do so without DACA. I am one of 3 undocumented people in my family who came as children, and I am the only one who has DACA. Who has been able to benefit from the program. My other family members would have benefited from the Supreme Court decision in favor of DACA this past last month. When I was asked to participate in this town hall, I was asked to reflect on what DACA meant to me. And in reality, I realized that I would not be the same person that I am today without it. DACA gave me the opportunity to get a job in a professional setting, to advance my career. It gave me the opportunity to drive legally before my community was allowed to do so here in California. But most importantly, it gave me my voice, a voice that I have used countless times, the voice that I am using now to speak up against the cruel acts of this administration. What many people don't understand is that every time DACA gets threatened, my peers and I are in limbo. It is a constant reminder that we are not safe, that we are not appreciated for the pride we have to call this country our home, for the hard work we do every day to contribute to our communities. I have been a loud advocate for my community, but I break too. Every time DACA gets threatened, I have to question whether I will be able to continue with my career. Unlike some of my peers, I do know what it's like to live in a world without DACA, to be in the shadows. And I'm not saying that I would ever go back there again, but I do hurt for those who are still there, who are trapped there by the fear in the shadows. My life throughout this administration has been in constant limbo and has taken its toll on my mental health. And I have experienced anxiety, depression, and I am lucky to have a support system at my workplace, at my home, in my community to help me through my ordeals. But what about those who don't? I mean, we have to wonder about those students who don't have anyone and are lost and are in the shadows. DACA to me means the peace of mind that I will be here tomorrow and that I have a future to look forward to. Nearly 4 years ago, I asked for the advocacy of my elected officials, and I have been lucky to see that and know that the fight is not over, and everyone is still, my elected officials are still searching for, a win to that fight. But now I ask the help of my community members who are eligible to vote. We have spent years worrying and fighting about this issue. If we want to see a real change, it will only come with a new administration. And let's not forget that there are other people who are deserving individuals as well, other than the dreamers. We need a chance at our American dream. And we are not the only dreamers here in this country. Our parents came here seeking that same dream for us, and more importantly, to be able to obtain that American dream. So that is what, in short, what DACA means to me.
Outstanding, outstanding. Thank you very much for that. And you're right. It's you realize that this is about you, but it's like you said, it's also about your family members and your parents who risked so much to sacrifice so much to leave the unknown, to leave the known and come to the unknown. And the reason they did that was to give you a better life. And I've always learned that to be the American dream. And as you'll see over my shoulder here, these are all my relatives who came over and were here to basically allow us the opportunity to live that dream. And it's my responsibility, I feel, to continue to provide those opportunities for people like you so that you can fulfill the dream of your parents, your family members. And so I look forward to continuing that fight, and obviously knowing that we have the support of people like you, and doing it for people like you gives all of us a lot of motivation to fight that much harder. So thank you. Another guest that we have on is Kathy, another dreamer from Salinas. She's a Viking from North Salinas High School, or she was, graduated. She now is at Hartnell College, or no, she is at Hartnell. She graduated from Hartnell College. Now she's studying her bachelor's in social work at San Jose State. She joined me back in 2017 at Hartnell College when we talked about how important DACA was for her and for so many other students who were there at Hartnell College. And I'll never forget, Kathy, when you said that day, DACA gave me the opportunity to come out of the shadows, similar to what Adriana just said. And so, Kathy, it's so great to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. And please, if you could, feel free to say, if you could say hello to people and provide all of us with your story and how DACA has helped you.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me back. It's so great, and I feel so honored to be able to share my story. And thank you for giving me the chance to have that voice to share what DACA means to me and what it's done. I'm currently studying at San Jose State. I'll be graduating this fall, 2020, so almost there, just a little more. And
Good.
I am so grateful that I was actually able to renew my DACA. I just got it back about 2 weeks ago. So during the whole time, I was in between the same limbo that Adriana was talking about. And because I work at an agency helping kids who are 5 and under, I was very worried, not only for myself, but for my clients. I think the first thing that came to mind was, if the program is removed, what's going to happen to my clients? What's going to happen to the kids that I'm helping now? And it helped me realize that being a DACA recipient does not only affect me, but it affects the people around me. So knowing my family, my workplace, the generations to come, it's not only about me, it's about the people who are watching me walk, my siblings, my nieces and nephews. I am the only DACA recipient in my family, and I am actually grateful to be able to have the opportunity to do so. Like Adriana said, being able to drive, being able to just feel free when you're driving, now being able, like you said, hiding in the shadows. Like, it's so important for me, and I'm grateful to do so. Hopefully next year I'll be working full time as a social worker. I'm excited to do so. I'm excited to fight for the kiddos who are probably under the shadow like me and don't know it yet. Because most kids who are young don't know that they have this certain status, or they don't know what this immigrant status means. Or being undocumented means. They haven't been explained so by their families. And so I'm excited to just show them that you can do it, that you can be successful in a country. And the one thing that I ask is that this program, be extended and not only protect us for a certain amount of years, but be able to give us the opportunity to serve them as we've been doing. Because we're not, like you said, we're not here just to stay. We're here to serve our community. We want to be able to give back to what this country and this program has done for us. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Every time I'm helping a client, every time I'm helping one of my kiddos, I'm always thinking, like, I wouldn't be able to be here if it wasn't for this program. And in a way, these families wouldn't benefit from those from that support coming from my experience if I wasn't a DACA recipient. So it always makes me think. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that it affects the people around me and the generations to come.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for, obviously going through the process of reapplying. And thank you so much for what you do for our community. We truly appreciate it. Not just the fact that you have come out of the shadows, but that you're actually living in the light, in the limelight, and for others.
Yeah.
Others live in that light too. So thank you very much. I truly appreciate that.
Yeah.
And Kathy and Adriana, we're gonna get back to you in regards to your time in DACA, but I want to introduce our next guest, who is Ignacia, and she is Ignacia Rodriguez. She's an immigration policy advocate from the National Immigration Law Center, otherwise known as NILC. Some of us call it NILC, like is milk. We call it NILC. And NILC is a leading organization exclusively dedicated to the legal representation for advancing the rights of immigrants. It's very important in our community here on the Central Coast. And as our previous two guests have spoke about DACA and what it means to me, I think it's clear that although this program remains in effect now, many dreamers are left with questions, as you know that, Ignacia. And so I'd like for you, if you could, to say hello, and also kind of tell us about NILC as well. And do me a favor if you could, and then I'll go back just to let Adriana and Kathy know. I'm going to go back to them after you answer. Tell us about the DACA program and what that takes and the status of it right now, if you could. But talk to us about NILC first and all the good work you're doing. Good to see you.
Hi, thank you so much, Congressman. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and with Kathy and Adriana. I'm just really motivated by their leadership. So the National Immigration Law Center is an organization that advocates primarily for low-income immigrants. We work on a broad range of issues, including access to healthcare, workers' rights, and an issue that has been a part of our work for a long time now are issues that affect immigrant youth, including the DACA program. So we were one of the organizations that helped with the brainstorm and implementation of the program. And now we find ourselves as one of the many organizations that are defending the program and ensuring that the program remains available, particularly for those who are eligible.
Great. And I guess if you could tell us how we can get a hold of you and NILC, and what's the procedure for doing that, if there is?
Yes, so you can visit our website, nilc.org, NILC.org. You can also follow us on social media. We have an active Twitter, Instagram account where you can learn more about our organization. And you can also contact us if you have an inquiry by emailing reply@nilc.org.
Okay, great. Now let's go briefly, Ignacia, tell us about the DACA program. Obviously, we have two great examples of people who, with Kathy and Adriana, who have benefited from it and applied to it. But tell us more about it, what it means, how do people apply for it, and the current status of it as well.
Yes, so the DACA program was announced by the Obama administration in 2012. It's been active now. It's going to actually be 8 years on Saturday that it's been available. And it's been a successful program. Immigrant youth who meet certain criteria are able to apply and receive protection from deportation and work authorization for 2 years at a time. There's been nearly 800,000 people who have been able to apply and receive DACA, which is incredible.
And that's across the country, across the United States, correct?
Across the United States, from countries of birth, from all over the world. So it's been a really successful, great program that many immigrant youth have really relied on and been able to achieve their dreams, being able to have access now to such a program. Unfortunately, the Trump administration decided to end the program, and that was announced in 2017. And that was subject to litigation, that termination. And so on July 28th, there was a Supreme Court decision which left in place the program as it was when it was announced in 2012, meaning that people who had never had DACA before would now be able to apply for this program for the first time. And that created a lot of hope for a lot of immigrant youth who maybe when the program was available before termination were too young to apply. Now they had that opportunity. Unfortunately, though, over a month after the Supreme Court decision, the Department of Homeland Security issued a new memorandum on July 28th, terminating certain parts of the program. So, for example, if you're a first-time applicant, if you're wanting DACA for the first time, you can no longer submit an application based on that DHS memo. If you're a DACA recipient and you're interested in traveling abroad using advanced parole, they may accept your request under exceptional circumstances. And lastly, if you have DACA and you renew your DACA, when it gets approved, it'll be approved for only a 1-year period rather than a 2-year period.
Got it. Got it. So once again, for first timers, people who have not received DACA status, because of that memorandum, they cannot apply. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. So the Supreme Court decision left open that opportunity, and many were really encouraged by the news. But now the Department of Homeland Security issued this memorandum saying that those applications will actually be rejected.
And once again, that is going to be subject to legal challenge. Is that correct?
We expect that to be the case. So NILC is actually part of the New York Bataya case that was before the Supreme Court, and they're meeting with the judge tomorrow, along with Make the Road New York and the Yale Clinic. And so that's where next steps will be discussed, and we can expect possible litigation.
Exactly. And once that happened, once that memorandum came down, myself and my colleagues instantly pushed back on the administration and wrote them and let them know basically how wrong it was and to reverse their decision. Obviously, what has been happening with many times in these types of decisions, it goes to the courts to end up pushing back and spanking down, to be honest with you, the administration, especially when it comes to issues like this, as we saw. And so once again, we're going to go through that process, especially when it comes to that memorandum. Now, for those that want to renew, those who have DACA status right now and want to renew it, are they able to do that?
Yes, so USCIS will continue accepting and processing DACA renewal requests. And so those who are eligible for renewal should still consider submitting their requests, especially if they have less than 150 days before their current DACA expires. We do recommend that these individuals consider renewing their DACA by consulting with an attorney or a DOJ accredited representative who can provide an individualized assessment, including an assessment of whether they are eligible for a more permanent form of immigration relief. Unfortunately, based on the new memo, if you were already issued a 2-year grant of DACA and work authorization, those 2 years are still valid. It's only the next time you apply for DACA renewal that then, if approved, you'll get a 1-year grant.
Exactly, exactly. And that is just, these rules are just applicable to the current administration at this time, correct?
That's right. And the idea behind this memorandum is while the administration decides what to do with the DACA program, these are the criteria that's going to be in place, the way that the program will function until they make that decision. So they could opt to bring back the program in the future.
And talk to me about what it takes to receive it. Are there certain qualifications that you have to have? Are there certain costs that you have in order to have a DACA, be a DACA recipient?
Yes, there is a set of criteria and evidence that you had to submit and qualify for when you submitted your first initial request for DACA. And as long as you continue to meet the criteria, which does include considerations of making sure that you're not a threat to public safety or national security, as long as you continue to meet that criteria, you're able to get your DACA renewed. You do have to fill out a series of applications, and you also have to submit a fee every time. So the cost of the program actually remains the same, $495, but this new memorandum effectively doubles the cost for DACA recipients because now DACA recipients have to pay $495 to apply annually rather than every 2 years.
Exactly. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, great. Thank you. And I'm gonna come back to you, but I want to go to Adriana and Kathy, and if we could get a sense of what it took. If you could, Adriana and Kathy, talk to us about Adriana. Why don't you tell us about what it took to apply and how you felt about the application process, and whether it's easy, difficult. Talk to us about the challenges, if you could. You're on mute.
Okay, sorry. Of course. So as I mentioned, my family members are looking into applying into the application process. So that really brought a lot of I reminisced a lot about my process and everything that I had to go through. I was very diligent, always knowing my mother always told me, hey, keep any record, keep anything that, says that you are here, that my mother could have never guessed that DACA was going to be something, but we always knew that there was always going to be some hope, right? So I kept all my certificates. So when I first applied, I submitted tons. I submitted all of my ID cards from all of my elementary schools, middle schools, high school, and everything. So it is a very lengthy process. You have to really prove that you have been in the United States almost every month. So you have to, who could have thought when you were 7 or when you were 15 that you needed to have proof of presence, proof of being in this country for all of your life. So I was lucky that I was very diligent, and a lot of the fault is because I love to keep memories and momentums of all of my things. But people who haven't, they really have to go to the district office to, their immunization records, all of that, to really look for that proof that they have been here. And that is very challenging and very, very difficult. But I remember the first time I applied, my application actually got sent back because when I went to someone to help me fill it out, they actually forgot to mark or check that I was not a criminal. And obviously, I have been in this country for so long without any kind of criminal record, and just that little check mark delayed my application for months. And so I was able to apply when it first came out, and there was uncertainty definitely about whether I was doing the right thing, whether it would be a trap, whether, but ultimately the support of my mom always was there, of hope that, that the government and our officials and everyone who is advocating for us would protect us. And they have so far, but definitely there is a lot of room for improvement when it comes to the administration and the protections and things like that we are lacking a more permanent solution.
Definitely, and I'm going to get to that. But in the meantime, as you know, and I want other people to know, our office, and trust me, I have an expert when it comes to these types of administrative, bureaucratic paperwork, especially when it comes to immigration. Our office is there, and Bertha Munoz, a staff member there in my Salinas office, is, like I said, she's a connoisseur when it comes to helping people with immigration issues, with DACA issues, with those types of bureaucratic issues. So please know that all three of you know, you can reach out to our office, but I'm letting the viewers know that you can reach out to my office there in Salinas. And Bertha Munoz is, like I said, our specialist when it comes to helping people with immigration issues, with the DACA issues as well. So Kathy, talk to us. Give us a little insight as to what it took for you to be a DACA recipient and how the application process was.
Yeah, so just like Adriana, I remember, Adriana, I don't know if you were asked for this, but I remember I was even asked for records from my country. So thankfully, my mom has always kept everything. So I was asked for like grades from like second grade and kindergarten. I'm talking like stuff that, you know, you probably never keep. And so I remember we had to look through them, send copies of every little detail that we could find. And I'm talking things I don't even remember living. Like I don't remember first grade, second grade. And so I remember she had sent a lot of copies. And one of the things that's very clear to me was just the financial cost of it that we had to pay to be able to receive it. And just recently, when I first applied, actually all my family got together and they all kind of pitched in for me to get it because I was the first one to get it. So they all kind of pitched in and put a little bit here and a little bit there for me to be able to go get it done and be able to have it. It did take a long time. I probably didn't receive it until like 8 months later, 9 months later, because the process was super long. Thankfully, mine didn't get sent back. I had every little detail that I could send. Now, when I went to go renew recently, it was a much easier process. It was a quicker process, but it was also a little more expensive than it was before. And I'm proud to say that this time I was able to pay for it myself and stuff like that. But I even remember walking into the office to finish my paperwork and in a sense, you know, feeling so emotional and sentimental at the fact that I was about to take out this amount of money from my pocket. We're in the middle of a pandemic. My hours have been cut off, and I had to have this amount of money taken out all at once just to be able to live my dream in a country where I've been for my whole entire life.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And like I said, hearing these stories is as I've always said, this is evidence for me to use back in Washington, D.C., when I can continue to spread the word of the work and the process that you have been through and what you're doing now to continue to fight. Because like I said, and as was mentioned, you know, we won the battle, but the war is not over. And there needs to be a permanent fix when it comes to so many people, the millions of people that are in your position. And so, as you know, all three of you know, but just for our viewers, Congress has continued to fight for Dreamers. We did last term in the 115th Congress when we tried to put forward a compromise, but unfortunately, based on the majority that was in the House of Representatives at that time, we could not do it. With the majority changing, we were able to, right away, pretty much within the first 6 months of our time in Congress, vote and pass overwhelmingly in a bipartisan fashion, H.R. 6, the Dream and Promise Act. Now, just to give viewers what that entails, the Dream and Promise Act deals with Dreamers and those who are on TPS status as well. And I'll get to that. That's more of the Promise Act. The Dream Act, as we know, talks about Dreamers. And what that will do is it will provide people like Adriana and Kathy with the option of having a conditional permanent residence. We call it CPR. Now, in order to qualify for that CPR, well, you heard about what the qualifications are from Adriana and Kathy, but also just to let you know, you have to come to the U.S. before you're 18. You have to have been here for 4 years. You have to have a high school diploma or GED. You can't have any felonies or you can't have a number of misdemeanors. You have to have a background check, as you talked about, and of course, pay certain fines and fees. Now, within that time, if you do 2 years of education at a college, 2 years of military, or 3 years of work at 75% full time, you then can be on your pathway to earn citizenship. We're not giving it away. You have to earn it, and people understand that. And like I said, I can't think of two better examples who are willing to earn it as Kathy and Adriana by just being here. And like I said, not just being here, but contributing so much here to our community and our country. And if you do that, you get legal permanent residency. You have up to 10 years to do that. Now, that is essentially the DREAM Act. That's what we passed in Congress. Now, attached to that was the Promise Act as well. And that deals with people who are here under temporary protected status. People who have come here from another country cannot go back to their country because of the conditions there, be it violence, be it a natural disaster, things of that nature, and have stayed here. And let me tell you, on the Central Coast, we have a number of temporary protected status, a lot from the El Salvadoran community, to be frank, who came here back in 2001 because of the earthquake and have stayed here because that TPS status has been extended numerous times because of the horrible conditions, unfortunately, in El Salvador. But let me tell you, of the people who are here in TPS status, a third of them own homes, 60% have children that are U.S. citizens, they contribute $2.4 billion to the economy, and 88% have full-time jobs. And so it just tells you that those who are here for 3 years will then be able to receive that pathway to citizenship because they've worked so hard, not only to come here, but to stay here and to contribute here. And so that's why I was proud to be one of the original co-sponsors of H.R. 6, proud to vote for it, proud that it passed. Of course, and unfortunately, like many of the promising and good bills that we passed out of the House of Representatives, they're stuck in the United States Senate at this point. And to be frank, what's going to need to happen, if I may, is that there will need to be a new administration before we do anything serious on immigration. We passed another important immigration bill called the Farm Workforce Modernization Act to help those who are working in agriculture stay here working in agriculture and provide them with another earned pathway to citizenship. Once again, passed on a bipartisan basis, Democrats and Republicans supporting that bill, passing it, and now it's just sitting in the Senate because there's not an encouragement out of the majority in the Senate and this administration, unfortunately. Doesn't mean that we're going to stop. We continue to fight, continue to advocate, because like I said, I have no better examples, but the people who are on the screen in front of you right now is exactly why we continue to represent you, serve you, and fight for you back in Washington, D.C. And so know that's going to happen. And so let me just, we're getting close to our time here. Let me just have, if I could, have Ignacia tell me what, and I obviously Kathy and Adriana said this, but officially tell us what Dreamers can do, those who want to renew their status at this point. What should be the steps that they should take, simple steps that they should take?
Yes, so if you're interested in applying for renewal, this is a good time to seek and consult with an attorney or a DOJ accredited representative. It's just best to have an individualized assessment of the risks and benefits of applying and being able to consider, for example, processing times, when should I submit my application to get it renewed timely so there's no lapse in work authorization, and then the DACA issuance. So that's really key, and it's because the opportunity to apply for renewal is available, and so people, especially those who have less than 150 days before their current DACA expires, should really consider renewing.
Exactly. Now, you would encourage people to reapply, is that correct?
Yes. But ideally, having an individualized assessment by an attorney is helpful because things may have changed since the last time that individual applied.
Exactly. Well, great. Now, let me just kind of start off with, for closing comments. Ignacia, anything that you would like to tell people in closing?
Yes, so adding on to what you said, Congressman, immigrant youth really have experienced a lot of uncertainty under this administration, and that's why the fight continues. We continue to call on Congress to pass H.R. 6, providing a permanent protection for this population and TPS holders without including provisions that hurt our communities. And it's past time to bring H.R. 6 for a vote in the Senate. And we thank you, Congressman, for supporting the bill and also for voting against any harmful changes to the bill. And while we wait for Congress to act, we're also pushing for the next COVID-19 relief bill to include automatic extensions of work authorization and protection from deportation for DACA and TPS holders. As I mentioned, the per application fee to apply for DACA remains $495, but now people have to apply annually, and this is a very burdensome task to apply and to pay for $495 per application every year. And given the current situation, the economic and health crisis, it's really imperative for us to be able to help these communities that are in need by providing them these automatic extensions. So thank you for your leadership, and also for Adriana and Kathy's leadership too on this issue, because they really represent the power that immigrant youth have, and the ability not to give up and to continue pushing for their own rights and the rights of others.
Yeah, there were, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much for saying that and tying it into the pandemic that we're going through. Right away, I and my colleagues sent a letter to DHS to asking for an automatic extension of DACA so that it's free of charge in light of this pandemic. And so it's those types of steps that we continue to take without the permanent fix of HR 6, protecting them and those who want to apply, making it as simple as possible within the confines of the pandemic. We continue to advocate for that as well. So thank you, Ignacia, and thank you so much for all of the help that you do for people like Kathy and Adriana and so many other people here on the Central Coast. So thank you, and thank you for your willingness to work together in this fight. Appreciate that. Kathy, please, before you head off to San Jose State, tell us what any closing thoughts, please.
Yeah, I think definitely it's what my parents have always told me: do not grow weary, do not give up. The fight still goes on. Every day is a new day. Every day is a new fight. Every day we work for our dreams harder and harder. So as we're in the process, even if it gets dark, we just keep fighting and we just keep dreaming. Let's show them what we can do as dreamers.
Exactly. Wonderful, wonderful. And obviously that's those are words that we obviously understand that here on the Central Coast, but we try to share those with many members of Congress who aren't as lucky to be from the Central Coast as I am. Let me tell you, we continue to share this evidence and those words of wisdom. So thank you for that motivation.
Thank you.
Last, Adriana, talk to us. Give us some final words, please.
Okay, so I would like to encourage those who would have been eligible to apply for DACA to don't give up. Still keep looking for all of your paperwork while we wait for a legal decision to come and to have DACA, the original DACA, be reinstated, and more importantly, have the people who are watching, the people who can vote, let your voice be heard. And more than anything, I think we're pretty lucky here in California, but when I had the opportunity to go to the State of the Union, I did meet other people who don't have as many DACA recipients in their communities. So definitely share our struggle through either social media or anyone who is outside of California that may not understand the importance of DACA. It's not only a California issue, it's a nationwide issue. And there are other DACA recipients outside of California who aren't as lucky, who have struggled a lot more than we have. So definitely use your voice, use your platforms, and vote. More than anything, just vote and let's just see a better America.
That's exactly it. Thank you so much. And it's, as you know, I lost a colleague. We lost a patriot in John Lewis recently. And one of the things he talked about, obviously, is getting in good trouble. But one of the things he said about good trouble was, that's also voting. Being able to vote and have your voice through the ballot box is something that if you don't use it, we're going to lose it. And so it's very important that we continue to vote, and that's how we're going to have to create change, especially on this issue. We here in California, for the most part, and of course here on the Central Coast, We're continuing to fight for this topic and continuing to fight so that people can continue to try to fulfill the American dream, like the three people you see here on our screen. But at the same time, there's other parts of this country, as Kathy, Adriana, you so eloquently put, that don't understand that and don't value that. And so it's there people who are watching and who know in other parts of the country, continue to hold your representatives accountable, especially when it comes to making sure that we pass reasonable, comprehensible, sensible immigration reform so that we can continue to help and fight for people like Adriana and Kathy. It's commonsensical. It's a no-brainer. That's why it's so easy for me to fight for you back in Washington, D.C. We have to realize we just got to make sure that there are other people who do the same thing. And if they don't, we hold them accountable at the ballot box. And I can't stress that enough. And so I want to thank all three of my witnesses for their fight, for their continued advocacy, and for being who you are and what you have contributed. Like I said, not just to our community, but definitely to our country and to our culture, who we are. You are who we are, and know that we appreciate that, and know that it motivates us back in Washington, D.C. to fight for you. So I look forward to continuing to do that as much as I can. And I look forward, more importantly, to working with you going forward and seeing your continued success here in the United States, but also here in our home on the Central Coast of California. So thanks to all of you again. Appreciate it. Stay safe, stay healthy. And yes, you heard it here. Vote. Thank you.